Well, hi there again. Welcome to week 5 of your 8-week Keto Bootcamp program. This is Carol Freeman, otherwise known as Keto Carol. I am here to teach you what you need to know this week. All right, so I'm going to be talking about celebrating success, remembering why. By now, you should recognize how important that is and why we focus time each week on it. I'm going to go over our Phase 2 rules for success. So officially, this week is when Phase 2 starts. And reviewing what happens during stage 2 of keto adaptation for you. I'm going to be talking about egg fasting, which is an advanced keto technique. I'm going to also talk about continuing reducing meals. So eating less, well, not eating less, but squeezing your food into a smaller window. We've talked about that last week's class, about how that's beneficial to have a smaller window of eating. So extending the amount of hours that you're not eating and eating over fewer hours. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in this class as well. And then strategy for success, or your psychology tip for this week's class, is about visualization and some goals and action steps, a little bit of homework for you too. So celebrate success, remembering why. What things have improved? Now, keep in mind that the little things really, really matter. You might be dismissing some little things here and there and just thinking, oh, it's not the big changes I want. But guess what? Little things add up to big things over time. So 1 or 2 pounds per week is 50 to 100 pounds in a year. Well, what if you're only losing half a pound a week? Well, that's still 25 pounds or 27 pounds an entire year. Another analogy I like to use, or an analogy I like to use with this, is when they're steering a big ship out at sea. If anybody has ever captained a boat or anything, you know that when you want to change course, if you're off course, you make a very small correction in your steering. You don't make big swinging changes to what you're doing. You make a very small change because over the course of going across the lake or the ocean, a small correction in what you're doing ends up being a huge difference in where you end up over the long haul. So think about that as well, as these little things that are happening, the little things that are improving over a year's time, over a couple years. Think about how big that's going to be, huge success. So please don't let that little part of your head, your little part of your mind that tries to tell you that little things don't matter and this isn't the big, huge success I thought it would be. All those little things really add up. And even at this point, 5 weeks in, if you look back to where you started, you've had a lot of really big change already. So give yourself credit. Dismiss that little voice that tries to tell you that little things don't matter, because they matter a lot. They add up to huge things. Now, remembering why you're doing this. Along with those little successes, this is also adding then to why you're doing this. It's really important. Just today, I had a YouTube commenter comment. I have a video out there that's my 12-month transformation. It's a video slideshow of my progress pictures for each month over the first year with some words over it that talk about all the health transformations that I had as well. And I had somebody commenting on there telling me that I needed to start implementing a low-fat approach and increase my protein, and that was the only way that I was going to get a lean, ripped body like bodybuilders get. And this was the technique that they use in order to get that lean, ripped physique. And this person knew because they'd won several trophies. And I had to reply and say that, well, that's great, but I have no goal of getting a trophy. My why is that I want to continue to heal my brain, and I want to maintain the low symptoms I have from the chronic pain in my legs from the crush injuries from that car accident. That's my why. Those are really important things to me. Those are more important than any food that's out there. And so this person continued to tell me that, well, no, most people quit keto because they don't get the body transformation that they wanted. And I thought, no, this guy or girl, I guess I don't know if it's a guy or girl, it's an anonymous person on YouTube, that I said, no, that's the people that I work with. They don't quit because they don't get a six-pack. Like, that's not the reason that all of you that are listening to this class right now, that's not why you're doing this. I mean, a lot of people are attracted to the idea of being able to transform their body and losing weight for the long term. But what's more important than getting frustrated because you can't get a six-pack is all these other health improvements. And they're so vast on keto and just totally life transforming. So again, this is a big part of why I emphasize this so much for you every week, is just what this guy was saying, was that when people focus on not getting lean and shredded and getting a six-pack, they give up. Well, yeah, because for most people that's impossible to achieve. So remember why, all the things that you are improving, and let that be your power, your empowerment when you're facing any temptation. So phase 2, congratulations, we're starting phase 2 now. Weeks 5 through 8 are officially phase 2 of this program. So phase 2 rules for success, there's 8 of them. So we started out in phase 1 with 10. Now over the next few weeks, these rules are gonna dwindle. So for week 5, we have 8 of them, and then over the next few weeks, we're gonna let go of a few other ones. So for this week, I'm going to show you how to incorporate nuts, seeds, and berries in a smart way to avoid triggering cravings and overdoing your carbs. And then coming up in the next few weeks for the remainder of this 8-week program is I'm going to teach you next week then how to add recipes in a smart way so that you can maintain your macros. Then we'll be talking about keto-friendly sweeteners, how to recognize them and what they are, and then how to know if they're working for you or not. And also then talking about the concept of net carbs, finding your carb tolerance, and then finally bringing in the concept of alcohol on keto. All right, so here are my phase 2 rules for success. So this is for week 5. You still want to keep it really simple. Follow the meal formula. So this rule number 1, it's number 1 for a reason, because this is what you're going to want to do long term for keto success. This is how you guarantee that you hit your macros every day, as you follow my meal formula. And number 2, keep it simple and easy. Again, those 5-minute meals are going to be really big key to your long-term success. Fast and easy. When you're hungry, the last thing you want to do is spend 40 minutes making a recipe. Well, next week I'm going to talk to you about how to incorporate recipes, but I'm still going to encourage you that most of your meals are going to be these fast and easy meal formula. And then occasionally when you want to make a recipe, you know how to add it in and figure out if it's going to work. Now the second set of rules, just like before, are all about keeping you in ketosis and also then getting your body to that fat and keto adapted state. So rule number 3 for phase 2 is still no non-keto foods. So rule number 3 is one that's going to stick with us for the whole, as long as you want to maintain a keto lifestyle. So sugar, grains, starch, beans, legumes, any sweet fruits as well. Those are all non-keto foods because they just trigger too much of an insulin release, even in small amounts. No alcohol. So we're going to discuss week 8 how that you might incorporate keto into, or how you might incorporate alcohol into a ketogenic lifestyle. And then number 5 is still, you want to track everything still, including weighing and measuring, especially the nuts and seeds that you might consider adding for this week. And then the final set of rules for success here, all about minimizing cravings. We still want to minimize and avoid any cravings. Nobody wants to suffer through that. So rule number 6 then is avoid those craving triggers. So by now you should be well aware of the things that cause you to have cravings. They could be those sensory input things that we've talked about before, about things that, seeing, hearing, smelling food starts the insulin response, and it makes your body start craving things when you get an insulin response. So avoiding those. It could also be situational things. We've talked about how your brain remembers certain patterns and behaviors that you've had in the past. And so when you always eat a certain food, or always eat when you're doing a certain thing, or maybe you're watching TV, or it's part of your evening routine, your brain remembers that and will cause you to have a really intense craving at that point too. So avoid situations and things like that that cause any cravings for you. Number 7 for this phase, for week 5 right now, is no recipes, but next week I will teach you all about how to add recipes. And then rule number 8, this is a final one for phase 2. No sweeteners of desserts or fat bombs just yet. So in 2 more weeks, I'm going to teach you all about keto-friendly sweeteners, how to bring in desserts and fat bombs in a smart way so that they don't re-trigger cravings, and then what to do if they do cause cravings for you. So stay tuned, 2 more weeks, we'll talk all about that too. All right, so adding nuts, seeds, and berries. Now, why is it that I've waited so long to add them in? Why is it 5 weeks in? Well, think about this. We're going to start with nuts and seeds. How are nuts and seeds packaged in nature? Meaning, how do they grow? Have you ever seen how an almond or a walnut grows in nature? Or a cashew even? Have you ever experienced having to crack open a nut for yourself? It's a lot of hard work. I remember as a kid that for some reason my grandparents always had nuts that were still in their shell, and it seemed like around the holidays for some reason that was when we would have those. And it was a lot of work. You had to crack the nut and pick out the pieces, and you finally got the nut out of middle, but it'd take you maybe 5 or 10 minutes to get one nut out. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration. Maybe it was 5 minutes. I don't know. But it was a lot of work. And because it was so much work, you didn't end up eating very many of them. And now the way that we buy nuts and seeds, they're already pre-shelled. They come in a, usually a 1-pound bag, and they're salted and roasted as well, which makes us like them even more. And so it's really, really easy to eat a bunch of them really quickly. And it's very, very easy to overeat them. And over and again, this is one of the things I've found, that when people are first starting out on keto, and if they have these big packages of nuts and seeds around the house, that it's very easy to overeat them, especially if they're pureed or creamed into like a nut butter, like peanut butter or something like that. Those tend to be big craving triggers for people, and it's really, really hard to limit your quantities. But typically, now that you've been doing this for about 4 or 5 weeks now, typically your appetite is much lower. You have a lot less cravings. You have a lot more control over what you're eating, and so this can be a safe time to begin to experiment with adding those back in. But of course, you're going to want to do it in a specific, strategic way to avoid overeating them. The same thing with berries. Well, okay, not the same thing. It's actually quite a bit different for berries. Berries in nature, they aren't packaged in a hard shell. However, if we think about, I don't know if any of you have ever been hiking or backpacking, think about the berries that you've run into on the trails. Now, I know that this may not apply to you, so you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but think about the berries that you see at the store, and maybe you could think about strawberries over your lifetime. How big were strawberries when you were a kid compared to those big giant strawberries that you can get in the store now? That's just one example of just in your lifetime how big those things have gotten. Now, when berries and fruits get bigger over our lifetime, they're just hybridizing them. They're selectively breeding them to give us ones with more and more and more sugar in them. They're not making them more full of vitamins and minerals. They're making them fuller of sugar. And this is what's happened with a lot of the berries out there. And so this picture here, I have some blackberries, which are I think they're the Himalayan blackberries, and they're all over the Northwest here. And every vacant lot, they're just completely covered with these. And they're really giant, very sweet fruits. And they're probably, I don't know, a couple inches in size, a lot of them. But when I go out hiking, you can see the native blackberries that were here originally 200 or 400 years ago. And they're very, very small. They're very sparse. You can't pick a gallon of them within 3 feet area, which you can these other blackberries that are growing around here. And so you can imagine the same thing with strawberries. Wild strawberries, the ones that grew originally several hundred years ago, they're very tiny, and they're also very randomly, they just grow very randomly. You couldn't pick a gallon of them within a few feet area because these giant berries that we have now. And so berries have really changed over the years, and they've been selectively bred to be really high in sugar, big ones, and also they're very easy to overeat as well. Now, if we were all foragers and we were just having to get what was growing out in nature, and there weren't farmers of these big giant strawberries, we could pick a few berries here and there, but you're never going to get enough at one time that would impact your total carb allowance. And so, but because we can go to the store and we can buy them, and you can buy them in, 5-gallon size bags from Costco, this changes the way that our relationship to gathering food and being able to naturally limit how much our body needed and could process. Not to mention, again, how big they are and how much sugar in them compared to what they used to be. So the same way with how nuts are sold in these big containers that are very easy to overeat them, the same thing with berries as well, is that they're very easy to eat a lot of them compared to what it would be like if you went out in the wild and had to pick them yourself. You would only end up with a couple of handfuls of them. So we have to reintroduce these foods in a way that we simulate what we would be able to get in nature. And that is actually what aligns with the way our biology can handle these foods. So in order to introduce nuts, seeds, and berries in a way that ensures that we're not going to overeat them, we're not going to overeat carbohydrates, and we're not going to blow our carb allowances, that you're going to need to weigh, measure, and then track these. So for the most part, most nuts and seeds are going to be about 1 ounce. It's going to give you what's going to fit within your carb allowance. Now some seeds though, like sunflower seeds, tend to be a lot higher in carbs, and so you might go for like a ½ ounce with those. This is going to be a personal choice. And so 1 ounce tends to be a standard serving size, and then 2 tablespoons of any of those that are pureed into a nut butter is also going to be something that's going to fit with your carb allowance. Now just know though that you're going to end up with about 5 to 7 grams of carbs for a serving of nuts, or just 2 tablespoons of nut butter, and that ends up being, if you're still eating 3 meals a day, that ends up being your entire carb allowance for that meal. But your appetite might be low enough at this point that fits. Or if you're eating 2 meals a day, if you're moved down to 2 meals a day, this fits a little easier as well. So pay attention if you're going to have some nut butter, peanut butter, almond butter, whatever it is. Notice how it makes you feel. You're going to notice each week that I bring up the topic of, here's signs and symptoms that something is causing a craving from triggering the brain chemistry or just causing an insulin release. And so notice whether whole nuts and seeds, how they make you feel, versus the ground up ones, because when things are ground up, they're much easier to digest and they're more likely to cause either a addiction trigger or an insulin spike. So just be mindful of that. Notice how it makes you feel. For the berries, a typical serving of those is going to be 1/4 to 1/2 of a cup. And now these portions in the beginning, if I would have given you these, it would have been really, really hard to limit to that amount. But now you're at the point where your appetite's nice and low, and you're able to, because we've taken out sweet things as well, you're going to be able to appreciate the flavors of these much more, and you'll find that this small amount will be very satisfying. I have to share with you that when I first introduced some raspberries, were the first berry that I brought back in, and it was several months in, and I had eliminated all sweeteners up to that point, and I was anticipating that the raspberries were going to be intensely sweet, overwhelmingly sweet, and this was at the peak of the raspberry season. They were local, they were organic, so I know that they were, ripe and flavorful, and so it was the end of the summer of 2015, or going into the fall, and the first few I had, they were so sour. I was so very surprised because I anticipated that they would be overwhelmingly sweet, and it turns out that they just didn't taste good anymore to me. And so that's another beauty of waiting longer, is that because your taste buds now are preferring higher fat, you might find that they just don't have the appeal that they used to. And like I mentioned, monitor for signs of ketosis killing. So look back in your other notes if you forgot what those signs are. But, oh, guess what? I'm going to go over them again too. So here are some examples of the most ketogenic berries that are out there. Now, I do show on here how many total carbs there are in 1/2 cup for each of these berries. I also show you the fiber. Now, I'm going to teach you later about this net carb count concept, but for here, I just wanted to bring it in to show you the difference. So just kind of compare the total carbs in all of these, and then notice how much of that is fiber. So for example, the raspberries and blackberries, a good portion of the total carbohydrates is fiber, and for the most part, fiber is not digestible, so the higher amount of fiber something has, the less of impact that those carbs are going to have on your blood glucose. And so blueberries and strawberries turn out to be much less ketogenic than raspberries and blackberries. However, strawberries are the lowest carbs per quarter cup. And so even though they don't have, a ton of fiber in there, they're only about 30% fiber, they still end up being very low overall in carbohydrates. So I just give you this for some information. So it ends up that blueberries are definitely the highest carb count and the most impactful. So they're the highest in sugars, basically. And blackberries and raspberries tend to be the lowest in sugar. And then strawberries are also fairly low, just a little bit higher than those. So if you wanted to try some berries, I suggest trying the ones that are the lowest in sugar. So maybe try some raspberries and blackberries first. Maybe try strawberries. Just know that blueberries are more likely to cause you to have more cravings just because they're so high in sugar compared to the other ones. And that's, again, think about blueberry size. I know in my lifetime they've gotten really giant, and the ones that grow in nature are very tiny little things that aren't nearly as sweet as the ones that we're growing. Same thing with the nuts and seeds that I've got here. I've listed the total carbs per 1 ounce, and for most nuts and seeds that ends up being about a couple of tablespoons. And then I also list the fiber just to let you know like how much of an impact this might have. Because again, for the most part, the more fiber of the carbs, the least impact it's going to have. Although when they're ground up, though, I found there's more of an impact that they have. So a couple of these I want to really point out and show you that are ideally some of the lowest impact carbs that there are. So pecans and macadamia nuts, walnuts as well. So those are some of the stars. Brazil nuts as well are really low in impact carbs too. But then noticing sunflower seeds tend to be fairly high compared to the other ones. And chia seeds look like they're crazy off the chart for 1 ounce, which for chia seeds ends up being about 3 tablespoons, is 12 carbs. But it turns out almost all of that is indigestible. And so chia seeds tend to be very, very safe. And also because of the way that chia seeds act in the body, they absorb a lot of fluids, and so they end up being very good for people that are having trouble still getting their blood sugars down. So they help bring that down. So I would recommend, if you want to try some nuts and seeds, chia seeds are going to be very, very safe, and they should not have any impact on suppressing ketosis, although there are, everybody's unique and different, and so I'm going to say for the most part, nobody's going to react to chia seeds, but there could be that unique person out there, so just exercise caution with any of these. I don't really recommend flax seeds as a ongoing food source, but there are some recipes that we'll talk about next week that use flax seeds, and they do tend to be mostly they do tend to be mostly fiber, and so they're not going to be something that's going to impact your ketone levels. Another one that is a really big star that I want to point out are hemp hearts. Hemp hearts are nutrient powerhouses. They're just loaded with magnesium, potassium, and a bunch of other minerals as well. Now, all these other nuts and seeds that you see on here, I'm able to look them up in the USDA database on nutritiondata.self.com or other database that's out there. And the reason we know the carbs and fiber per ounce is that they have done tests on them. The U.S. government has done tests on these to find out how much carbs and fiber there are. The thing is that hemp hearts are so new on the market that they don't show up in these databases. And so all we have is the information that's on the label from the manufacturer. And so what the manufacturer, and I've seen these range from 3 grams per 1 ounce up to 5 grams per 1 ounce. But always what I see is that the fiber amount is the same amount as the carbs. And so think back now to when we've talked about those hidden carbs on the labels. What if the hemp hearts really have 3.5 grams of carbs per serving, but they can round it off or round it down, and then the fiber really is only 2.5, but they want to round that up, so they have that kind of leeway in the labeling. And so, on labeling for almonds, for example, they're not going to say 5.5 grams of carbs. They're probably going to say 5 grams of carbs on the label. So what I have shown here for the hemp hearts is just what the label shows us. So it looks like 100% of hemp hearts are fiber, but knowing what I know about nutrition loopholes or labeling loopholes, that is not the case. But they're also so full of nutrients, and they are significantly mostly non-impact carbohydrates from fiber, that they're going to be a very safe one to add. They're also very, very tiny too, so they tend to be really hard to overeat because you can't just grab a handful of them. Most of them will just fall through your hand. So if you haven't tried those yet, I recommend those as well. And people often ask, how do I eat them? Mostly I'll sprinkle them on my salad or something, but they make a nice topping for anything. So one of the things I did was, asparagus grilled with some a green sauce that I made with, I think it was avocado or something, and then I just sprinkled the hemp hearts on top of that. It goes well on any kind, on a burger, on steak or chicken or fish or anything. They're just very small, mildly nutty, very soft little seeds. Nuts or seeds. I'm not sure what they are. I imagine they're seeds, actually. So those are ones that I recommend. I haven't had anybody tell me they don't like them yet, but there's always one, right? So here are some signs to watch for when adding nuts, seeds, and berries. And you should start to notice these things, because these are universal things for ketosis killing, for craving triggering, and so these are the things you want to watch if you add these. So if you're going along steady and you're losing plenty of weight and that slows down or stalls when you add nuts, seeds, or berries, and that's a sign that you should cut them back out. If again you lose your ketogenic edge, so if you start feeling mentally foggy or losing your energy, if your ketone levels decrease, so if you're measuring blood ketones and they start to decline, increasing cravings or hunger. If you experience digestive distress, so this happens a lot when people start to add back in things that have a lot of fiber in them, is that they start to cause them some gas and bloating. And so if that happens, just back off on it and do it a little bit more slowly. And of course, then if you start having obsessive thoughts about specific foods, thinking you just want more and more and more, and each day you're thinking about, oh gosh, I can't wait till I have that again, or I want more. If you measure out that 1 ounce portion of it, and as you're eating it, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna just have a little more, I'm gonna have more, there's not enough, I won't get full. Those are all signs that it's triggering that addiction part of your brain. So it's okay to take a break and go back to square one and go back to phase one. That's all right. There's nothing wrong with you. It doesn't mean you're failing. And especially the more insulin resistant you are, the more you'll want to wait on these things. So how would you fix it? So just go back to remembering why you're doing this, all the improvements that you've had, and just, again, go back to basics, go back to phase one. Be sure you're weighing and measuring and tracking any nuts, seeds, or berries you're adding in. Just go back again, basics, 20 grams or total 20 grams or less of carbs per day. So let's refresh and remind you, stage 2 of keto adaptation is what you're in now. And as a reminder, stage 1 was just getting to ketosis, and stage 2, where you're at now, is you're getting adapted to burning fat and making those ketone bodies and then using them for fuel. And stage 3 happens later, and that's where you're just optimizing your keto adaptation. It's where if you're any kind of an athlete or have any sports performance, that's where that starts to optimize as well. And so stage 2, more details about that. Just to remind you, this is where you're burning fat for your primary fuel, your body's producing ketones as a byproduct, and your body's learning to use fat efficiently for fuel. And also it's learning to use ketones for fuel. So at this point, you still probably have ketones that are showing up in your urine. So if you have ketone sticks, you're going to be seeing that. And you may also still be having some digestive issues with your body not digesting fat very well yet. So it's got to learn how to do that too and make enough enzymes to digest everything. So if you're having any trouble, if you're feeling any nausea after you're eating, reach out to me. There's some digestive enzymes I can help you with short term that can help you get over that hump. Also, if you're still having, if you're having any diarrhea, that can be from your body not digesting the fat efficiently, but it could also just be die-off of the carb-loving bacteria in your gut. And so there can be varying lengths of time that happens. But again, if you're having that and you're not sure, reach out to me and I can help you tease out. I can tell I'm not going to look at it, but I can, I'll ask you a few questions and I'll be able to figure out which one of those it is. And so again, at this time, you're still going to probably be seeing some ketones in your urine. You'll always see it in your blood and your breath. And you should be noticing week over week that you're having more energy and that mental clarity is getting better and better. And any day now is when people start to really feel a lot more energy. Typically, that's when they start feeling like, oh my gosh, I just want to take up a new sport. I want to go walking. So follow that lead. If your body is telling you it wants to go move, it wants to go burn some energy, follow that, because at this point, when you increase your activity, you're going to be burning even more fat. Now, this is different than in the past where you were told to exercise more and eat less. Now, that's a recipe for hunger. But when you're already in this fat burning mode and you go do especially things that are endurance things, so like walking or hiking or walking on the treadmill, even as, slow running, jogging, those are all things that are actually going to burn a lot more fat at this point because you're already in that fat burning mode. And typically once you get, so again, follow your body's lead when it says it's got energy and when it wants to go do something. And you'll find too that once you get going that you'll just feel like you have so much energy reserve that you could just keep going forever. Like run, Forrest, run. You could run across the country almost. I've found for me personally is that I'll go hiking and then I'm done hiking, but my brain on the drive home is thinking, gosh, I wonder if there's a trail over there I could stop and walk on. It was just a very bizarre feeling to have where it was like I didn't want to stop and I already hiked for 3 hours. And so follow your body's lead, incorporate some kind of exercise, but do something that you like to do. Don't force yourself to do something you hate, but there's a lot of choices for things to do. And you should still be noticing too then decreased appetite and continued decrease in cravings. And now we're going to talk about egg fasting, our advanced keto technique. I'm going to share with you what is an egg fast, might you want to do one, why does an egg fast work the way that it does, and how do you actually do an egg fast. So what is an egg fast? Well, an egg fast is where you limit your diet for a few days to only eggs, fat, and then some optional cheese. And what it does is it ends up keeping your protein very, very low because eggs are 50% fat and 50% protein. So it ends up keeping your protein low, your carbs very low, and then your fats in comparison are very high. So the basic formula, but I'm going to go over this a little bit more for you, is that for every 1 egg that you eat, you also must eat at least 1 tablespoon of pure fats. So in your master food list, the pure fats that I have listed there. And then you can have up to 1 ounce of cheese to go along with that. So why would you want to do this is the question. Well, it's a phenomenal weight loss stall breaker. And so if you get to a point where your weight loss is stuck for 2 weeks or longer, it works really, really well at breaking that. Many people experience up to 1 pound of weight loss per day. It also is a way of accelerating weight loss if you just want to speed things up as well. And also if you're starting out on keto or starting over, this gets you to ketosis faster because again, keep protein and carbs as low as possible is going to get you to ketosis faster. It also can be used for optimizing ketone levels, and so if you're having trouble getting your ketones into that 1 to 3 optimal range, it can bump things up a little bit higher for you. It's also a way of just pushing yourself to limit, again, maximizing weight loss. When I did this the first year that I was on keto, the end of every month, the last 3 days of every month, I would do an egg fast as a way of accelerating my weight loss. So there's one of my secrets. Also, it can be a way of further removing your attachment to food as reward, entertainment, comfort. When you have a very limited diet, it forces you to look for other things for entertainment, and it forces you then to engage in things like self-care and relaxation strategies instead of using food as those things. It can be a spiritual practice as well, although that I haven't seen people do so much on an egg fast, but sure, it could be. So how does it work? Why does it work? Well, again, it's very low in carbs and low in protein. So when you keep protein and carbs low, you're going to get less of an insulin response in the body. And for some people, it really pushes it down below a point of what their sensitivity was before. So for example, the people that have trouble getting their ketones up to that optimal range, that this can be lowering their carbs and protein for them in a way that gets them down below their tolerance too. It also is very high fat and percentage comparatively to the carbs and protein, and so there's some magic in that on keto as well. Another theory too is that the amount of choline that you're getting from the eggs is really helpful. So eggs are one of the richest sources of choline in our diet. Now choline is kind of like a B vitamin, but to get an actual vitamin status in our world, it needs to be associated with some kind of a disease. And so things are only called vitamins if we don't eat them and we immediately get, well, not necessarily immediately, but we soon get a disease that we could die from. And so with choline, they know that it's good in our body, and they have identified things that it does, but they haven't shown that if we're deficient in it that it causes a specific disease. And so therefore choline doesn't have a vitamin status. So we call it something that's a vitamin-like compound in the body. So we know it does things that are important in the body, but apparently they haven't figured out that if we don't eat it that we die. So eggs turn out to be one of the richest sources of choline, and guess what? It's only in the yolk, it's not in the white part. And when you eat only eggs this way, you're ending up with lots more choline than you normally would get. And part of what choline does in the body is that it helps the liver with detoxification and all the other jobs that it does. And so there's some thought that by increasing your content of choline that you're getting in from your diet can help optimize ketone production and fat burning in the body too. So here is actually how you do it. First thing you want to do is decide how many days and commit to that. I recommend between 3 and 5 days. I can tell you you're going to get sick of eggs really quickly because it's so limiting, and if you haven't committed to a certain number of days to start with, it's going to be really easy to talk yourself out of continuing on past the first day or maybe even the first meal. So commit to how many days you're going to do. If you're going to do one, share it in the Facebook group, and you'll get a lot of support because there's a lot of us that have already done them, and so we're there for you. And you might even get somebody that wants to do another one with you as well. So if you decide you want to do one, you might ask if other people want to join you, and we can do a small group challenge as well, so you don't have to be going it alone. And so decide how many days. I recommend 3, but you might want to try 5, and then just commit to that. I've always done 3-day ones. I committed to a 5-day one once, and I never made it past the 3 days. So I've done many that are 3 days, but I haven't been able to go past that. So here is the basic formula. So for every egg, you must eat 1 tablespoon of fat. So that can be the most common one people have are butter or mayo, but you could do olive oil or bacon grease or lard, tallow, or any of those other fats that are listed as the pure fat. So for every egg, you have to have 1 tablespoon of fat. And then you can have up to 1 ounce of cheese optimally or optionally with that as well. So again, any of those pure fats. You can also have any kind of cheese, and so some people forget about cream cheese, for example. It gives you a little variety, and then also that allows you a lot more flexibility to make some, you can thin out the cream cheese and, make a creamy sauce or something like that. So there's quite a few things that you can do with this combination, and you can do things like deviled eggs. Oh, actually, I've got some examples here, so hold on just a moment. But you can eat as many eggs as you like per day. Just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, just like you have been doing. You don't need to force yourself into having a certain number of eggs per day. But you do need to be mindful of this combination. So you can't eat 3 eggs and 1 tablespoon of fat like you could on the regular meal formula that I have. You need to, for every egg, make sure you're having that full tablespoon of fat. So if you wanted 3 eggs, you're going to need to eat 3 tablespoons of fat as well. And so eggs can be cooked any way you like. So they can be hard-boiled, poached, baked, fried, scrambled, omelet. soft-boiled 3-minute egg. You can make deviled eggs with them as well, because then you're mixing the mayo in with the yolk, so that works as well. Just be sure, make sure you drink your water, and don't forget your salt, because this, as you optimize ketosis and as you're burning more fat, you're going to be urinating even more. So be extra diligent with your salt when you do this. You can add small amounts of condiments like mustard or hot sauce if you want to, but just don't get carried away, because those do have a little bit of carbs. And remember, the whole idea of this is that you want to keep carbs as low as possible. But no other things. So if you notice, no veggies at all. That's what keeps the carbs really low. So nothing green, no parsley or chives or green onions as garnish or anything like that. So unsweetened beverages are completely fine. So coffee, tea, all those flavored sparkling waters, all those are great. Salt and black pepper, of course, may be used freely. And again, no other foods besides what is there. Eggs, fat, and cheese. All right, so again, if you want to give it a try, share in the group, and you'll be able to get some other people to join in with you as well. So meal planning. Again, continue. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that this week's class, because we've talked about it before, but just to emphasize that follow your appetite as your appetite allows. Avoid snacking. We fall into that trap of eating different times of the day because it's time to eat. We need to eat. I've heard several people tell me, over the course of working with people through this program, is that, well, I had to force myself to eat this because it'd been so long since I'd eaten. Well, guess what? You don't have to ever force yourself to eat anything. There's no reason ever that you need to eat. And so it's okay to skip meals. It's okay to skip 2 meals. So just follow your appetite and, be aware of things that are going to cause you to want to eat when you're not really hungry. So just having food out and seeing it, that's going to trigger it. Also boredom. I find for me that when I'm working for quite a while and then I feel like I need a break, I'll often find myself in the kitchen and I realize I'm not really hungry. I just want a break from work. And so I find something else to do that's a break and not food, because I'm not really hungry. Or time of the day, a lot of people will say, oh, it was lunchtime, I had to eat, or dinner time, but don't challenge yourself to see how long you can wait before you're really, truly hungry. And, escape from stress, and there's a lot of other reasons that people would turn towards food when they're not actually hungry. All right, so continue decreasing the number of meals. By this point, you should be away from the snack plan and at least down to 3 meals a day, and then moving towards that 2 meals a day. And 3 meals a day, as a reminder, 5 to 6 grams of carbs, this is per meal, which ends up being about 1 to 3 cups of veggies. Of course, look it up in your tracker to see how many cups of veggies of the kind that you're having at your meal. A third of your protein, which ends up being about 20 to 30 grams, and then 1 to 3 tablespoons of fat, of those pure fats. And if you're doing 2 meals a day, 9 to 10 grams of carbs, and which is 2 to 5 cups of veggies, half of your protein, which ends up being 30 to 50 grams, and 2 to 4 tablespoons of fat if you're eating 2 meals a day. And now let's develop another strategy for success and talk about visualizing it. How do thoughts impact your success? We're going to talk a little bit more about that, and then we're going to dive into a little bit more to what thoughts you're currently having about your keto diet, your success, your keto lifestyle, and your health transformation. And then we'll explore, what do you actually want? What do you want your health to be like 1 year from now? What do you want your health to be like for the rest of your life? Now, let me demonstrate to you the power of visualization. Now, a lot of people don't understand or realize or think it's even possible that what we think about, what we imagine, our body responds as if it's actually happening. So we have talked a lot about how just seeing, hearing, or smelling foods makes your body respond as if you're actually having that happen in your body. Now, eyes open if you want to look at this picture here, or if you want to close your eyes as well, that's an option. But just begin to imagine a fresh lemon, noticing the yellow color of the skin, imagining that waxiness of it. Perhaps you can imagine how smooth it feels with a little bumpiness as well. Now, imagine that you picked that lemon. You're going to slice into it. And as you do, the little squirt from the rind, a little bit of a mist of that lemon zest releases from the fruit as you cut into it. You cut a nice big slice or wedge. You could smell the lemoniness, that fresh lemon juice. And now, place that slice or wedge right into your mouth and bite down. Now come back to me from that visualization, and what happened? Did you notice that your mouth began to water? How powerful is that? All you did was imagine that you were biting into a lemon. You weren't even actually biting into a lemon. There's no real lemon in front of you. So whatever you imagine, whatever you think about, your body responds as if it's really happening. So this is part of why just being exposed to food, seeing or smelling or hearing it can cause an insulin response. You already know that that happens. Here's another example that your mouth starts to water just imagining something. So if you can, just expand this knowledge that you have, this awareness, expand it a bit more to think about what your current thought patterns are doing to your body. What thoughts are you having about your keto diet? What visualizations are you having? Are you imagining yourself failing? Are you imagining yourself cheating? Are you imagining yourself suffering, feeling bad, feeling discouraged? What if you actually spent that time imagining success? What if your thoughts were excited for the future and you visualized and imagined yourself being successful, achieving your goals, transforming your health? Now you know that your mind is powerful. You know that just being exposed to certain food causes your body to respond as if it's really there. Your thoughts create what happens in your body. So let's begin to use those thoughts to achieve what you want. Now, are you having thoughts of success? Are you imagining keto as a lifestyle, something sustainable that you're enjoying, you're looking forward to because you're focused on your why? You're focused on your long-term success. Can you visualize your health transformation? Could any of your thoughts use an attitude adjustment? So here is my little homework assignment for you to help you get into the right frame of mind. The first thing I want you to do, just begin to imagine what you want your health to be like 1 year from now, your body and your health. And then what do you want your health to be like for the rest of your life? It might be a challenge because your mind might automatically go to the things you don't want. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to have pain. I don't want to have cravings. I don't want to feel disappointed. See if you can describe what you do want. What do you want? I want to feel lean and trim and healthy. I want to have energy. I want to have calm and peace and clarity. I want to feel happy and content. I want to look forward to life. I want to spend time with my friends. I want to go shopping for new clothes. I want to be able to exercise because it feels good for my body. What is it that your health looks like? Now your homework. Dream big. What exactly do you want your life to be like? Your whole life. Now you've got there in your workbook a place to write down. I want you to create your lifelong health mission statement. Be as specific as you can. Include your body, health, the level of energy you have, your career, your relationship, your community. Think of this as sorts like a vision board, only in words. And if you want to go so far as a vision board, do that as well. Cut out some pictures, images, put them right there in your workbook. Dream big. What do you really want? Because you can have it. You can harness the power of your mind, your visualizations, the things that you say to yourself. They matter. They do matter. Now take your time with this and think about all the different aspects of you and your health. Now, of course, I want you to set some goals and action steps this week, so set things that are relevant for you. Now also, please share your health mission statement in the Facebook group. When you come up with that, share what it is. What do you want your life to be? What is it your mission now? Not only your why, but this is your mission. Your mission is to provide yourself with optimal health. What does that look like? What are all the details? All right, well, that's all for this class. Congratulations for completing another week, week 5. And any questions, please, as always, share in the Facebook group, because if you have a question, I guarantee you more people have it. And if you post it there, then everyone else gets the benefit of seeing the answer to that too. So that's the best way to get your questions answered. And of course, come on the coaching calls too. That is really the best way, and the second best way in the Facebook group. But please reach out, share your mission statement with us, and until next class, we'll see you later. Bye.